Anxiety. What a dick. um, Obviously, right now, with everything that's happening in the world, anxiety it's a key topic. It's everywhere. Everybody's feeling it. And at least from what I've seen and witnessed and experienced, a lot of that anxiety is wrapped around this intense desire to control. I know I feel it. I know that's the root of my anxiety, and I've worked through it for a long time. I go nuts when I feel like something is out of control and that I don't have control over it. And right now, there's so many things that are happening within our world that people do not have control over. And that is being magnified everywhere we look. And it's driving people absolutely freaking bananas. If you go on social media and you look at posts about supporting one thing or not supporting another, or all of these things, we look at that, and our first reaction, if we don't agree with it, is, "Oh my God, how stupid! How could that person be like that? Or how can they think that way? Or how can this?" And we're translating and we're relating our experience to something that somebody else is feeling or somebody else's opinion. And that's all part of our desire and our intense need to control. And how effective has that been for everybody? Has it been an effective use of everybody's time to try to control them, or to try to control situations? Can we control this pandemic that's happening around us? Can we control anybody's desire to wear a mask, or whether or not they're going to adhere to it? No, we can't. And no matter how many times we yell and scream and post or do whatever we have to do about it, it's going to have this much control over other people's actions. And that's the reality of it. We are experiencing as a society so much anxiety over the fact that we have this intense desire for everybody to see the world the way we see it. And I'm totally guilty of this too, and this is why I'm talking about this, is because I've been so guilty of it. I've been so wrapped up in my own anxiety over looking at all of this craziness that's going on around us, and I too have been going insane. But I'm also seeing this that everybody else is participating in it. And there's a lot of new people that have been inducted into our anxiety club. So first of all, I want to welcome all of you to this wonderful club. I would meet you in person, but A, we can't given current circumstances, and B, I'm an introvert, so that probably wouldn't work out very well. But anyway, I digress. The anxiety that everybody's feeling right now, wrapped around this intense desire to control everything and control other people's actions to be based on what we feel and what we want and what we desire. And it never, ever works. And we've adapted this world that just revolves around this sense of provoking that, I guess that unhealthy debate that we have, where it's if you don't see it my way, then you're wrong. We have to come to the terms, every single one of us, if we want to manage our own anxiety, we have to come to terms with the fact that we do not have control over 99.999999999999999% of what happens in this world. We can't control a global pandemic. We can't control whether or not Karen wants to wear a mask or not, and she's sharing a desk with us. We can't control other people's opinions. Now let me I could feel people starting to get a little nuts about that right now. We can't control it. That doesn't mean we can't influence it. So how do we separate out influence and control? Well, that's where we look at the 0.000000000000000000001% of the things that we can control. What does that come down to? What is that small fraction of a percentage of what we can control? Well, it's our own actions. It's how we respond. It's how we interact in the world. Our behaviors. There's a lot even about ourselves that we can't control. We can do everything we can to avoid getting sick. We can do everything we can to eat healthy and stay safe and do all of these things. But aside from wrapping ourselves in bubble wrap, it's very likely that there's things that are outside of our control that are going to have an influence on us. But there are behaviors that we can control. Our actions we can control. How we interact in the world, we can control that. And while that in turn doesn't control other people's behaviors, other things that are outside of everybody's control, what the president does, what the governor does, whoever does what, we can't control that. But through our actions, if we can come to terms with that, through our actions, our behaviors and things like that, we might just be able to have some influence. And it's very, very, very important that we all look at that and how influence works. And we remember that influence isn't control. It's setting an example. It's setting an example of what we want to be in the world. So now we get into the cliches. The cliches that some people say or might have on their social media wall or something like that says that you be the change that you want to be in the world, or that sort of things. And of course, those are inspiring little quotes, and they're go get them. But in some ways, they're actually true, because if you really want to focus on changing the world in a small way or a large way, where that starts. You don't start by trying to change and control the 99.9999 whatever percent that you can't control, because that's going to have you spinning in circles and it's going to amplify anxiety. Trust me on that. If that's what anxiety is about. Anxiety is anchored to control. It's anchored to a desire to control. And if something feels like it's out of control, that's where our anxiety goes, because we don't have certainty. The things that we don't have control out are perhaps uncertain. So we don't have the certainty we need to know what's going to happen. Therefore, we start catastrophizing the future, or things like that, or somebody else isn't doing something that we would do, or that we would want them to do, and we go crazy. We get that anxiety. We start to build that resentment. And that is where the root of anxiety exists, in that desire to control. If we start with that 99.99999% of that's how we try to change the world, is by trying to control that which we can't control, we're going to get nowhere. We're going to spin in circles. We're going to make ourselves more anxious, more fearful. If we just focus on that small speck of control that we have in the world, how we respond, how we react, how we behave, our actions. They may seem like a small part of what's happening in the world, but they're enormous in the implications that they have. They are enormous in the implications of the influence that we can have in the world. So let's separate out control from influence. And remember that controlling that small part of the world that we have control over, which is ourselves, by controlling that, we will have an influence. And that would be my advice. So as somebody who has this affliction of anxiety, and it's even a superpower, in my opinion, it's it's bad at times. I mean, it's debilitating. It's hard to be a person that lives with anxiety. It's hard to sit here in front of a camera and look at it and try to speak without having anxious thoughts enter my mind, and not have them overpower me. But it can also be a superpower, because there are some wonderful things that come along with anxiety. That obsession that drives us nuts, that causes us to drink or get into addictions or things like that, is also the type of obsession that can help us to become so compassionate, so disciplined, and so focused on something, on doing good. That same hypersensitivity that people may latch onto, saying you're too sensitive, that can be a superpower of compassion. You can care so deeply about people because of that sensitivity. There is good that comes from this. And one of those superpowers is being able to separate out control and influence, is being able to recognize that the desire for control is so deeply anchored to anxiety that if we want to control what's outside of our control, that's going to pile on the anxiety that we have. But if we only look at what we control, what we can control, which is ourselves, some things of our behavior and all of that, and we really, really focus on that, we will have influence, and we would do well with that. So I would just recommend that, coming from that, ask yourself that question: what do I truly have control over in any situation? If it's somebody that's causing you struggle on social media or something, or that they're constantly getting under your skin, there's an unfollow button for that. That's one thing that you can control. You can also control your behavior and response by commenting and engaging with it and escalating it. That's probably a negative thing, and it's probably an effect of you trying to control the other person. So just remember, examine your motives. Examine what our motives are, and examine what we do actually have control over, and do that. And one of the biggest things you learn early in sobriety, which is part of my story, of course, is the serenity prayer. And that asks that very question: what do I have control over? And whether you're a praying person or not, whether you believe in God has control over the universe, or the universe has control over the universe, or it's something we just don't quite understand yet. Just say that simple prayer to God or to the universe or whomever you believe has more power in this world than you do. Just ask, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I can't change, which is that 99.99999% of what's happening in the world. The courage to change the things I can, that 0.0000001%. And the wisdom to know the difference. Because in that difference, we can have the influence that can change the world.